No delegations, eh? Okay, adoption of the agenda. Are there any additions or amendments, or could I have a motion then to adopt the agenda as presented? Councillor Danaka adopts as presented. All in favor? Motion is carried. No scheduled delegations and public delegations. I see none coming forward. One more time, public delegations. Moving on. Protective services, not this month or this meeting. So public works, moving right along to pitch-in week, and I don't know if you have to come up because it's pretty self-evident here.
It's just a motion of council, yeah.
So, could we get a motion on pitch-in week then? Councillor Tanaka.
I make a motion that council approve the week of May 1st to May 7th, 2017 as pitch-in week in High Prairie and advertise in the South Peace News, Facebook, the town website, and on the town's digital sign.
Okay, any discussion on this? Councillor Gilroy.
I just need to ask, do we have any major events happening at the arena that weekend? Because I remember last year, it was great throughout the week, but on the Saturday, we had multiple events there, and so it was kind of a little difficult to get in there. So,
do you know? Have you checked?
I have not checked. I will check tomorrow. We managed to work within. We stay way over on this side, and we managed to still.
I was there last year.
Yeah. So, to my knowledge, there's nothing going on because the gun show and the other event that was to be held, which is.
Well, we know when graduation is in there. What's the week of
June 2nd and June 30th.
Yeah.
Or
I think it was a dance society event that was there last year. I don't think it was.
They're doing that this weekend.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
all right then.
Yeah, June 1st and 2nd.
Who would we check with just to ensure? The Recreation Board, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Could you just?
Yeah, I will. Yeah.
Okay. So, any other comments? Any other questions? All in favor? Motion is carried. Next item is the minutes. The March 28th public hearing minutes. A motion, Councillor Gilroy.
okay, I'll make the motion that council approve the minutes from the March 28th, 2017 public hearing as presented.
Are there any errors or omissions to that meeting? Seeing none, all in favor? That motion is carried. Next item, March 28th regular meeting minutes. Could I get a motion? Councillor Long?
The council approves the minutes from March 28th, 2017 regular meeting of council as presented.
Are there any errors or omissions? Councillor Tanaka?
I just have a question. What happens to the stuff that we didn't complete from the May 28th?
Councillor Administration?
Some of it is already addressed in these minutes, and I believe the only other item was the appointment to the library board, which is coming to, I got it on the 25th meeting of April.
The only other thing was our reports. Do you have anything? None of them were.
We added your reports that were submitted for the last meeting, and they're also included in these ones here, besides your new reports. So you can speak on all of them when it comes time.
All right. Any other questions, errors, or omissions? Seeing none, all in favor? Next one is the April 4th? 3rd. April 3rd special meeting minutes. Could I get a motion, please? Councillor Rose?
The council approved the minutes from April 3rd, 2017 special meeting as presented.
Any errors or omissions? Seeing none, all in favor? That motion is passed. April 4th special meeting minutes. Could I get a motion, please? Councillor Rose?
The council approved the minutes from April 4th, 2017 special meeting as presented.
Okay, are there any errors or omissions in that? Seeing none, all in favor? Motion is carried. Next item of business is the volunteer appreciation event funding. Could I get a motion on that? Councillor Long?
That council approves funding for the amount of $2,500 in the FCSS account grants local organizations budget to help the 2017 annual volunteer appreciation event that is hosted by the FCSS to recognize 100 volunteers.
Okay, discussion on this item, Councillor Danaka.
Based on the email that Terry had sent us about what does and does not qualify for the FCSS funding, taking it from that account doesn't work because it doesn't qualify.
The volunteer appreciation one does.
It does, okay.
That's the only one of the three that does.
Councillor Gilroy?
Yeah, I was actually going to say the same thing. The question I have comes back to, do we have the funds for $2,500 to come totally out of the FCSS, or will it be partly FCSS and partly some other department?
The amount that has been given in the past for the volunteer appreciation is significantly less than the $2,500 they're requesting this year. There will be a little bit of money left from the 2015 that was not totally expended in 2016, but 1,000 of that went to the party program, which now we find out has to be changed. So there will be that money left over if we take it out of the party program, out of FCSS funding to the council funding, then that will free up that 2,500 in the FCSS, yes. There are other organizations that have applied on an annual basis for FCSS funding. There's the Elders Banquet, and there's another one because most of the Aboriginal activities that are not just for the an event for a social, but also that have a lot of other things that the Friendship Center does to help mitigate some of the problems that some of the Aboriginal people have, falls under this category also.
How much was the volunteer appreciation event funding for last year?
Last year, you only gave 500 for the volunteer appreciation and 500 for the seniors event.
Okay.
Can I talk to that for a second?
And,
Just being
well,
on
I
the
want,
board.
Councillor Gilroy had his hand up first. Okay, Councillor Rose?
So normally, the funding that we provide to FCSS covers this event. It covers 50 volunteers. Yeah, normally that's all that we allow. That's what they allow for. So all we tried to do, and I think it was a little bit confusing maybe, I thought that we had talked about it before, trying to enhance the event and trying to be able to recognize more volunteers. So what I had asked for is, if we exceed the 50 that's already provided for in the funding, can we approve additional funding based on two things? One, we get the names forward and they actually need the funding. And and two, we actually exceed, like we go to that, we only give them the money if they actually need it. Because there's already $1,250 of the FCSS budget that we provide them that's allocated for this $25 because they paid for the first 50 anyway. They don't come to us for that. So when we gave $500 last year, we gave it to FCSS for this specific event?
Yes, the checks went directly to the County of Big Lake, specifically for the FCSS Volunteer Appreciation 500 and for the Seniors Barbecue 500. And usually we do not wait until they give us numbers. It's automatically the check is sent.
Right, and then part of that's obviously in the FCSS funding, because in order for them to run this event, it costs them significantly more than our $500. So the town of High Prairie was just obviously putting extra funds into that. So all we were talking about was, do we want to enhance this event by, like right now, they limit the amount of pressure they put on the community to put forward applications because they only have the ability to recognize 50 people. So if we go to minor soccer or minor hockey and say, would you like to recognize all of your volunteers or some of your volunteers, we could get a flood of requests that we can't handle based on the funding. So did we want to support that? Because a couple times it's come up with this council that we don't have a big recognition for our volunteers. We're struggling with volunteers in the community. This is an opportunity to put some dollars, enhance one of the projects that are already ongoing. And maybe this year we don't have a lot of time even, so this can be an approval in principle. I very much doubt that we'll go to 100 because they normally get around their 50. So if we had the ability to say, let's send this application out a little bit deeper into the community, maybe we're gonna get another 20 applications, maybe. And we'll approve and give them funds based on how many more than 50 that they get. And then from there, going forward, maybe we can make it part of our donation. Instead of having a separate volunteer event like we had talked about, we would just help them have a larger event.
Councillor Gilroy?
My concern basically is we've been having extensive budget considerations, and out of respect for the taxpayers and the line that this council wanted to do about holding the line on expenses as much as possible. I know that there was money in FCSS, and the only concern I have, it's not that I don't want to recognize volunteers. I appreciate volunteers a lot. However, all I'm asking is simply, if we take all of it out of FCSS, if the money is there, then is there any more FCSS money left for any other organization throughout the year? And if not, then we have to be very aware that we will be taking any future donations out of another donation grant area. And I just want us to be aware of that. It's not that I'm turning it down. I just want to make sure we know where the money's going, because I don't want to raise taxes just, no offense, just to support a one-time event.
It happens every year.
It's,
Just, what, I probably wasn't
Yeah,
really clear
That's okay. Councillor Panasic?
about the amount.
Is this just for High Prairie volunteers, or is it for county and, like, it's a regional, High Prairie and, so what is the county chipping in extra funds to make this happen? Because when I look at this, I see that we would be paying for everybody there, you know, in terms of 2,500 at $25 each, we'd be covering everybody's cost and not splitting it with anybody else. So that's my question.
Councillor Rose?
So two things, and I'll answer your question to Councillor Panasic, but what I was alluding to with my first goings on about the funds, the 25 versus, or the 50, yeah, $25 for 50 is really the all we were asking for was $1,250, not 2,500. So in the motion, that's we can amend based on really what the request is if we want to enhance it. And what was your question again?
Is the
Oh,
county
right.
chipping in?
There's 5 different events happening throughout and they happen every year. So every year FCSS supports volunteers in all the communities. And all of the other communities are funded through FCSS. This is the only one that we're putting forward a request to enhance. And it's a standalone. High Prairie, these are High Prairie volunteers. Now they can be somebody that lives in the county that works at a hall, for instance, and they're so for example, Triangle isn't a community themselves, so they can get nominated for an award through the High Prairie Volunteer Appreciation. But there's one in Inilda for Big Meadow. There's one in Jussard for Jussard. There's one in all the other areas for other volunteers. So the only ones that are sort of that spill over would be if there's, say, a volunteer for the golf course maybe, or a volunteer for a hall that's not recognized as part of a community. Does that make sense? So everyone else does have separate funding. So if you were part of the Banana Belt or the Big Meadow Hall, they would recognize you in the Inilda volunteer.
Oh, absolutely, if that's.
And it's all paid for with funds that are allocated for each one. This is only just to enhance the High Prairie one.
Councillor Long?
So then, you're actually only asking for $1,250, is that correct?
That's right.
So then do you want me to amend my, so I will amend my, it's gotta be the full amount, doesn't it?
Excuse me?
Don't they have to allocate the whole total? Like the $1,250, they still have to make a motion on the first $1,250, or that's not automatic?
To host 100 volunteers,
Yeah.
he's only at 50.
I'm only asking for like what actually, the request is just for an additional 25, or additional 50. Oh my goodness, the $25 is mixing me up.
But it still comes back to council every year, even
Um,
50, right?
Over the years, I sent the email to Councillor Gilroy in regards to how much we've spent over the years for the volunteer, and it ranges anywhere between 500 and 1,700 every year, but the 1,700 included the seniors, so I think it was 1,000. So it ranges from between 500 and 1,000 every year, but yes, it does have to come back to council every time. So in this case, is the motion including that original 500, or is it an additional 1,250 on top of the usual 500? I think is what the question is.
So you would have to make a motion on the original amount, no matter what that was, 500, 1,000, whatever.
Okay, I'm a little bit confused about the original amount, but this was just, this motion, what I was trying to bring forward was just, do we want to enhance the volunteer appreciation to a maximum of 100 volunteers? So that, all I was asking was from 50 to 100, which would be 1,250. Now, if FCSS has brought forward another request that I don't know about, or that, you know what I mean, like this, is there another request for the 500? And normally, when do they send you that? After their event?
No.
Before. So they haven't. So I'm assuming that that funding is looked after in the request for FCSS funding. Because if they haven't asked you for funding thus far, this was just an addition.
Normally, this is not brought forward by a councillor. Normally, this is brought forward to us by FCSS themselves, and then they're the ones that will make their request for a certain amount. So if you're doing this on their behalf, then you'd have to specify that this is the only funding they're going to get, and that they won't be getting anything else if they come and approach us.
Well, I think what I'm trying to say is I'm not trying to change anything that's normally done between the town of High Prairie and FCSS. All we're trying to do is enhance an event that normally happens by allowing an additional funds available for additional volunteers if those names are put forward. Now, if that's something that's too complicated now because I don't know the normal request from FCSS and all of the financial workings of each component of that budget. Can't really speak to all of that. So I'm not saying I want to change anything. This was just, let's see if this was the opportunity, because we discussed it last year. We didn't get anywhere with it. I said, let's please bring it forward, even if this council decides we don't want to do it this year because we're tight again. Let's do it for next year and make sure that the money's in the budget to make sure that we can enhance this event.
Councillor Long?
Well, the money's there.
Turn your mic on.
We've already determined that the money's there, but if their normal request has been $500 and Councillor Rose is wanting to expand on that to make it a bigger and better event and increasing it to $1,250 so as not to take away from the initial $500 that they normally ask for, why don't we make it for $1,750? And that way we know we've got enough set aside, and if it gets used, great. If it doesn't, then and that way we know for sure that we're able to make this a bigger and better event, but at the same time not taking away from their initial 500, and that helps supports Councillor Rose's request and maintains the FCSS.
Yeah, the integrity of what they're planning on doing if they're going to come to us.
Councillor Tanaka?
So are you asking for the extra from anything above 50 to come from the town, or are you asking an approval to come from the sesquicentennial as part of the 150th celebration? I'm just confused on where it's coming from.
Councillor Rose?
We never had opportunity to have much discussion at Sesquicentennial. So I can't really speak on behalf of them, but because the town sort of controls that spending, I threw that out there as an option to potentially, we can approve the funds and then that conversation can still happen. But it's very time sensitive anyway. So it's difficult to involve the Sesquicentennial committee, but yeah, there was dollars in that budget. All I was sort of trying to point out is we do have dollars. We do have to make a motion on those dollars as well. So potentially, we could try to have it enhanced as a sesquicentennial volunteer appreciate, or like, you know, we could maybe provide some certificate or something. The funds could come from there if, but we, like I say, we are in we're in a bit of a time crunch, and we have to have that board meet, and then we have to approve it.
Councillor Gilroy?
Councillor Long, can I just have a clarification on your motion? Is it up to 1,750?
Up to 1750.
Thank you. That's all I need to know.
Is there any other? The only thing I would say is I have attended these functions, and and it was with the 50 people. And what I was disappointed in is that out of those 50 volunteers, 10 of them were from Pioneer Threshermen's, and probably 12 were from the library. So I find that when over half or 2/3 of them are two organizations, it kind of makes you wonder, are the rest of the organizations not interested in this? So if we open it up to 100, are we now going to get 20 from Pioneer Thresherman and 30 from the library because there's just more chance for them to come? I wish that they would say, okay, 5 maximum from one organization, because I did attend 2 years in a row, and they were both Pioneer Thresherman and the library, and those were the ones that got all of the appreciation, which is not to say they shouldn't have appreciation, but if you're trying to find 50 volunteers, and the reason that you've got 50 is because it's just 2 organizations, it kind of makes you wonder what's the intent. Councillor Law?
And I think that part of that falls back onto lack of advertising. Getting the nonprofits out there excited about this and getting them putting in the different names for the different individuals. And so for everybody out there in TV land, YouTube land, get your nominations out there. Support the people that volunteer in this community and show them that you care. So put the nominations in, please. But the one that I attended with the CAO of the Big Lakes County, it was really well attended. It was diverse. They had live music. It was a lot of fun. It wasn't huge. I was surprised at how few people were there. There was probably, like you say, 30 people, and that was it. But I think that if we really encourage the community, get out there in the press, and Mr. Clegg's here as well, then hopefully we'll have the different communities and the different organizations getting involved and putting their volunteers out there to be recognized. So do it. There.
Okay. So as your FCSS representative, I would appreciate it if you would discuss that at your next FCSS meeting, whether or not it's worth taking back or not. It's up to you. Yes, Councillor Rose.
No, and I appreciate those concerns, and that's actually some of my own. I have attended as well, and I saw that there was a few groups that received more awards, but I did see their challenges, and that's when I asked them if this would be a solution to some of those challenges, because it's hard to really ask for a lot of volunteers if there's not a lot of space to put them in there. You don't want to have to turn people down, right? So I said, would this open up the door? And talking with Nancy Margaret, she would really like that opportunity to go out to more groups as well, and then to have us forward that information to those groups for her and to help her advertise that, because yeah, the word doesn't get advertised well, so maybe we can start by allowing the extra spaces and then help her with some promotion.
All right. Is there any other comments, concerns?
Just one there.
Yes, Councillor Panasic.
I'm just thinking about 100 in EVAs. Is there space for that? Like, I don't know what the capacity is for that space, but I know 50 would pack it pretty good. Never mind 100. I don't think legally you could put 100 in there. That's something you'd have to look into.
Yes, Treasurer.
I just have a request as to how this will be paid. Will I be waiting for the FCSS coordinators to send me an invoice for the amount of people, or how are we going to go about for the payment?
Probably send an invoice for the, because then you'll know exactly how much. And it's at $12.50 a head. So if they only get 60,
25 a head.
pardon?
$25.
$25 each? Oh,
That's for the meal and then the award, right? There's a little token award.
okay. Yeah. So, if they get 60, is it 10 extra? So it would be, the first 50 are not billable. Anything over 50 is billable. Got that, Treasurer? Are you writing that?
I'm writing, I didn't get it all, I'm not writing fast enough.
The first 50 are not billable. They are included in the 500. So anything over, and I believe that is that what we're saying?
Yeah.
So anything over 50 will be billable at $25 per person to a maximum of 1,250. And the reason it's 1,250 is because the 500 is the standard amount. Okay? All in favor? Yes, Councillor Long?
So then the amendment to my motion is $12.50.
1750.
It is $17.50. Okay, good.
1750. 500 is their standard. 1250 is for the extras. Okay?
Got it.
All in favor? This motion is carried. Next item is FCSS. Could I get a motion on this one? Councillor Rose?
That council approve that all town organizations, recreation, library, FCSS, museum, that are funded by the town of High Prairie be allowed to advertise their news and events through the town newsletter, website, Facebook, and electronic sign, subject to available space.
So this is a policy change. Is there a different, because we have a policy for advertising on our sign. Do we require a different process for changing policies?
No, I think this reflected mostly to the newsletter, but I listed all the funded groups that are funded through the town of High Prairie. What this was the newsletter wouldn't be any bigger than the one page, double-sided, what it is now. And right now, we're finding that there is some small spaces that are available, and we're filling them with trivia stuff. So if FCSS is having an event, then I see it more benefit to fill it in there, of recreation or the museum, than to put trivia information. We're not going to expand any bigger than the one page double-sided, but we felt that it'd be better to offer this to the group that were.
What about this part here where it says electronic sign?
That was just on the advertising.
So are we, because
We're still
we have
allowed, yes.
we have a policy on electronic signs, so this may be deleted, should be deleted?
Could be.
Could be meaning yes
Yes.
or no? Yes, all right.
Can be.
Could be, yes. And what is just before I start, well, how do we change policy? You bring it forward as an RFD specifically for the policy.
Yes.
And you have the policy there. Okay, so who made the motion?
Councillor Rose.
Will you delete then, amend, just to take out electronic sign?
I got a question on that.
Yes.
I mean, we've made motions that have gone against policy in the past, right? So what's different with this one? We can make the motion and then change the policy if we think that's the right thing to do. If it is in a policy that it's against policy. Yeah, you know what
I know what you're saying, but I'm
Yeah.
not aware of the policy. When you say we've made motions against policy, a couple of times I can remember them as a one-time motion, but this will be an ongoing standard procedure. And I think that if you want to change the policy, and we're well aware of the policy, we should bring the policy forward. That's my feeling on changing policies.
Are we for sure?
No, Councillor
Sorry.
Rose?
Does our policy not allow though then
I don't have it in front of me and I
FCS?
don't know what it says.
I see, so you're just saying because we don't have clarity on the policy. And we've got an electronic sign policy,
You do.
because that's standalone. Because this normally, Brian, you would advertise an FCSS Family Day event on our electronic sign. So it obviously fits into our policy. So our policy is basically non-profit, is that it?
And I actually think all of these do get on the sign, but I don't want to say.
I hear what you're saying.
Okay. Councillor Long?
Well, and I'm going to say my recollection, but that's probably the worst word for me to use, but is that it fits under the electronic sign policy. If I recall right, that was why we had that put into place. But if it isn't, I see Councillor Panasic going at it, so that's what I'm hoping for. He's looking at it. But I would like to think that it is already included within the electronic sign policy. Therefore, I think we should leave it in. You're wanting it on the sign of caution. I'm saying I think it's there, but let's look for it. And if it is, then we make the changes as necessary.
Afterwards is what I was
Yeah.
saying.
Yeah.
But-
If it's already on there, there's no change to be made.
Right.
This request is to deal with the newsletter.
True.
And really, electronic sign was thrown in there as to say, well, let's cover all our bases. But it really was to deal with newsletter areas. So rather than muddle it up, let's deal with the newsletter and talk about your electronic sign later if we find that it isn't covered.
Fair enough.
Councillor Gilroy?
Actually, I think Councillor Janak was first before me.
I'm sorry.
Sure, okay.
I missed you there.
If this is, right now, as far as from my recollection, which may not be any better than his, anytime we have events for the museum, FCSS, the library, recreation, it's already on the sign. And you're saying that, and I'm sure we probably already put it on our website and Facebook stuff. If this is specifically for a newsletter, why are we putting everything in the kitchen sink with it?
Okay.
Couldn't we just adjust it to say newsletter if this is the only thing that it really is going to add?
Councillor Tanaka? And this will be the last comment because we're moving along.
I mean, we're going through this, and do we really need a policy regarding the newsletter? Like, if this is strictly beyond everything and moving away from the electronic sign, because we advertise it on Facebook, we advertise it on the electric sign, it's on the website when you look. Do we really need a policy about putting something in the newsletter?
Good point. Could be just basically administration. and let
Administration
administration
decides if there's
speak to
room,
this.
it can go, and if not,
And
so
the
be
reason
it.
why I brought it though,
No, we're gonna let administration, what is your,
you let them know.
It's basically just to let the town organizations advertise within our newsletter. So if some group come from the 4-H club come in or whatever and ask to advertise, would say no. Because they're not funded through the town of High Prairie.
To just have clarity as to who can.
Yeah.
okay. We got it? All in favor? It's basically for information then for us.
So we're not editing, we're not,
I think you did say take out electronic sign.
okay, that's what I said.
So electronic sign was out, yeah. The receptionist got that. All in favor? Motion is carried. Next item is the seniors barbecue. Could I get a motion on this one?
You wanna make a motion?
Councillor Rose.
The council provide the funding in the amount of not more than $2,000 to FCSS to host a seniors week barbecue.
Treasurer, how much did we give last year?
500.
Okay. All right, who would like to speak to this? And we'll start with Councillor Rose, who is on the FCSS. Yes,
And I brought that forward at the request of FCSS because they wanted to just make sure that we realized that during Seniors Week, the last day of Seniors Week, usually there's funds in the recreation budget to have to prepare a barbecue for seniors that's jointly paid for between the town and the county because it's part of the recreation board budget. In an attempt to keep a zero budget balance coming forward, they removed that from their budget, so it's not in their budget. There'll be no funds for a barbecue. And seniors are used to having that in that seniors week. Now they have activities all week long. There's different activities that are hosted by FCSS, but there won't be a barbecue because there's no funds for it. So they wanted us to at least know that it's not gonna happen unless we did wanna put the funds forward. And then I have talked to the recreation board and they're willing to put it on like they normally do. They would be the host. It would just be, they would work with FCSS like they have in the past, but there's just no funds this year.
Councillor Gilroy?
Oh, I thought you were gonna go.
Nope, I'm gonna ask you, you had your hand up. Side issue.
Actually, Councillor Rose began to just talk to one of my questions, and that was who is going to actually run it?
You.
And is that, since you're going to make it fourfold, from 500 to 2,000, is that for materials only, or is that going to be for salaries if the staff at the rec board are going to be involved? How's the $2,000 going to be spent? And is it per person, or I'd just like to know the breakdown of it, since it won't be coming from FCSS.
So the meeting that you and I both attended with FCSS, where they put the request forward, they didn't give me a breakdown of how the money would be spent, but that was the amount that it cost to run the barbecue. So I'd have to say I'm assuming that it's just the cost of the food and the materials, and that then the staff would all be provided, and there'd be some volunteers that would be involved in that as well, but that is a bit of an assumption.
The reason I asked that, if I can have one last word, is being part of the rec board and being more privy to the running of the rec board. I wasn't quite sure how in the past they ran it, if any part of it was actually an allocated amount with the tight funding of the rec board, if it was allocated to personnel as well. So that's one reason I asked.
Councillor Tanaka, did you have something?
I've always been one to say that the town really does nothing for its citizens. We don't have spring, we don't have an Easter egg hunt on the town lawn. You know, we don't do anything to honor or celebrate the citizens of High Prairie. I mean, I know this barbecue, it says it's a seniors barbecue, but I know it's not limited to seniors. I mean, people can come, so it's one way. And so far we've spent almost 45 minutes arguing trivial, in my mind, in my opinion, trivial items that are almost no-brainers. And I mean, I think we need to step up and help that make sure that this barbecue goes. It's a tradition, it's always been. And let's stop arguing about if we should or if we shouldn't. Sometimes you have to do things that you have to do, and this is one of those have-to-dos.
Councillor Long, Councillor Panasic.
Yeah.
So there.
Yeah. Pressure, eh? How does this work with the barbecue that's held at Pleasant View for the seniors there? How does this tie into that?
I think they're two separate things. The Pleasant View has their own, if I'm not mistaken.
Do they just do their own entire?
During the same week too, eh?
Yeah.
That's one of the events that the seniors attend. There's barbecues actually for quite a few times during that week.
Well, that's what I was wondering, because I know, that they hold that one there, and seniors come from all over for that one, because I worked it a couple of times. So I'm just thinking, well, and then I feel like, I agree with Donna, it's not a big tag, but I also feel like this is something that we're going to have county people at, and they've taken it out of the rec budget. Now we're paying way more money than we paid before. So it doesn't seem, like we've, we're paying more money than if we would have left that into the rec board's budget now, right? Which doesn't seem right either.
Treasurer?
Just to let council know that this, even though it's hosted and held and organized by FCSS, is not FCSS funding. It does not qualify, so the money will be coming out of your council grants to organizations.
And that's where it came last time?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. So, I agree with what Councillor Danaka has said. I also know that at the rec board there was discussion previously, a year or so ago, as to is this recreation, and if it isn't, like how could a seniors barbecue be recreation? Therefore, why are we paying for it, the recreation, et cetera, et cetera. But if the town decides to go ahead with this, actually I think that we need some banners out there that says this is sponsored by the town of High Prairie, so that it's quite, people are well aware that this is not the FCS barbecue, seniors barbecue for FCSS. It is not the recreation board. It is the town of High Prairie's barbecue. So unfortunately, we might have to spend some money on advertising, as in the banners that we could put in front, stick onto the tables, roll them up, bring them back, and we can use them again at trade shows, or maybe we already have banners. But I think we need some kind of acknowledgement on this, that this is our barbecue and our appreciation for the seniors. Is there anything else that anybody else wants to say? Then the motion is for $2,000 to FCSS for the town to host. Please insert that if you don't mind, for whoever made that motion, for the town to host the Seniors Work Week barbecue. Okay, all in favor? That motion is carried. Alberta 55 plus. Councillor Long.
That council approved Mayor Cox or Deputy Mayor to attend the opening ceremony for the Alberta 55 plus games in September 2017.
Have they asked for any money yet from us, or?
No.
Not yet.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if they will, actually. They're looking okay.
They're looking okay. All right then. And does anyone from us go to these meetings?
I do.
You do? Oh,
Not
okay.
officially. I go,
Yeah.
yeah.
You just go because you're interested. All right then.
Just getting ready.
Just getting ready. Any other questions or comments or anything like that?
Michael.
Just
I did go until they got my name wrong, okay?
Can I just ask for a
Yes.
friendly amendment to be, instead of to or deputy mayor, just or delegate, just whoever's going to be available, because we may run into a problem if we don't approve it properly, as to who would speak if mayor's not in town.
Yeah. And that was your motion?
Yeah.
Or delegate, okay? All in favor? The motion is carried.
Madam Mayor, I have something that should be addressed right now in the financial section. I know my voice is different than usual, but
So this will be in addition to the agenda. It is, I don't know how urgent it is.
the only reason it has to be brought up is because in your previous motion, you specifically gave the account. And so because the GL account was not mentioned in the motion, it has to be changed now.
And that's the party program, the motion on the party program, because it does not qualify for FCS funding, it has to come out of a different grant. But, well,
Doesn't qualify.
because of the guidelines.
We just found out.
Okay, so,
It has to come from the grants from council
Yeah.
to the
Yeah.
community groups.
Yeah, unfortunately, if I can address this, Chapter 5 of the FCSS handbook, it says prevention, alcohol, and risk-related trauma in youth party program. It says this program does not meet the definition of FCSS prevention in that the primary focus is safety and injury prevention. The main intent does not avert social breakdown. And so it's right in there that says, and same with the DARE program.
Wow.
I'm sorry.
It used to, and that's where we've been putting it all along. Even last year, last three treasurers have put it into the FCSS, but I guess it doesn't qualify.
Yes, we did. I think this actually, because it's arising now, it should come to your April 25th meeting.
Okay.
There's no urgency on this. It's just a.
No, the check has already been issued.
Yeah.
Okay, no problem.
Okay. Thank you, though. He'll mark it. CAO's report. Could I get a motion, please? Councillor Rose?
The council received the CAO's Brian Martinson's written report and action list for information.
Okay, Mr. Martinson, do you have anything you wish to bring to our attention on this?
Only on some other items besides my report, and we found out yesterday that we were approved for 4 STEP students
Good.
in a summer program, so that's additional $16,800 for the town, so that was good news. And again, the only items that we weren't discussed in the last meeting was the checklisting and the councillor reports and the motion to appoint the library appoint members, so. But the council, like I said, the extra reports from councillors that were missed from the last meeting have been added to this one too, so, and the checklisting too, so. But if anybody has any questions regarding my report, be good to answer any questions except from Public Works Superintendent.
Just to enhance CAO Martinson's thing for the summer students, we're also accessing the Métis program as well. So that should cover off our extra summer student. As council said, we had a budget, and any grants that we were able to recover would go towards, if we could, use it for the extra summer student.
Are we asking the homeowners to cut their boulevards this year, or are we continuing to cut them ourselves?
We are.
We won't let
Okay. Any other questions on alleys? Do alleys. Start with the alleys and work to the boulevards.
The girls, as they get caught up, and depends on the weather, lots on
Yeah.
the weather, that I do recommend to my new pre-appointment, Mike Denty there, to direct them to pick an alley and go down and clean it up,
Okay.
cut the grass.
Don't go with the snowplow yet.
Time permitting.
Time permitting. Councillor Panasic?
Couple of questions. What do we actually have in our budget for step positions? Do we have the 4?
$60,000.
But how many does that cover? How many step positions
cover
does that cover? That covers the 4. So we got enough to cover that. That's good. The other question I have is what's happening with the Tim Hortons development there?
Alberta Transportation is requiring a new traffic assessment study because the existing one that Peavine did for the entire subdivision was more than 10 years old. I had quite a lengthy discussion and argument with Danny Jung from Transportation, and he was still insistent upon this happening. So we took it upon ourselves to get a copy of the one that Peavine had and forwarded it on to the Tim Hortons development for an update. And the engineering company that did the original one was willing to do it for $4,000 to $5,000, which the developer has indicated that he will accept and pay for.
Okay, how long is the traffic assessment take?
I don't know.
Usually with this one, they're just going to do another traffic count and submit the same plan, because really my argument with Transportation was, what are you going to do differently? You already made them build regress and degress lanes already there. There's an upgraded intersection at Fountain Tire. The only thing that I could see happening is they may lower the speed limit from 80 to 60 or 80 to 50. I was on the phone for quite some time.
You're not
More
recommending
air
it.
gone.
Yes.
Wow, we're just zinging you guys today. No discussion about potential traffic lights?
Transportation wouldn't want to put traffic lights in. They don't like to slow traffic to that extent. If there's traffic lights needing to go in there, I would think that the developer would not want to put them in. So
No, I'm thinking more of the hospital as that picks up and the volume's gonna start.
the hospital was dictated far enough off of the highway that they did not need to do one. I agree. That was my argument is that like I said, Councillor Long, I had quite a lengthy discussion. I was on the phone for probably an hour and 15 minutes with him, and then again seen him at the arena in Peace River and had another lengthy discussion with him, and it did not help. He wasn't budging.
Well, I actually think you did pretty good, just going for the update.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so. All right then, any other questions? Councillor Panasic, any more? Seeing none? The motion is to accept as presented. All in favor? That one is passed. Next item is the check listing. Councillor Gilroy.
I move that council receive the check listing for council for February 22nd to March 21st, 2017 for information.
All in favor? That motion is passed. If you've had any questions, please contact administration. Next item is broadband. This is strictly an updated letter, and I will move that council receive the letter dated March 27th, 2017 from Honorable Stephanie McLean, Minister of Service, Alberta, regarding the government's work with respect to SuperNet for information. And that's basically all this letter is to make sure that the different municipalities are aware of the very, page 2, the second paragraph in, it's a large paragraph. Third line, we want to caution municipalities on signing long-term agreements with ISP. They are very worried that some municipalities are moving ahead and signing a long-term agreement before they have figured out what is going to be the SuperNet contract that is going to be signed in the future. So it's just an awareness to ensure that municipalities wait a bit longer, and as more information comes out, we'll be kept in the loop on this. All right. Any questions? All in favor? This was passed. Next item is tour and lobster dinner. Councillor Gilroy.
I recommend that, or I move that council receive the invitation to attend the tour of the Alberta Industrial Heartland and Lobster Dinner on April 29th, 2017 in Gibbons, Alberta for information.
Those that have been to Heartland, or I suppose actually, I have never been, but I've heard about it. It's actually, it's pretty impressive. But I think at this time it's a moot question whether we would benefit from doing a tour of that. Any other questions, Councillor Long?
Do we have a large lobster industry in Alberta that I'm not aware of?
Yeah, well, it must be all those newbies that work in Heartland. I don't know. It's not Alberta beef.
I don't see Alberta beef there at all.
Not even surf and turf?
No, no. So, Community League lobster dinner. Yeah. Okay, all in favor of receiving for information? It's carried. Next item is the E.W. Pratt commencement ceremony. Did I get a motion on this? Councillor Long.
Council approved the attendance of Mayor or Deputy Mayor Friday, June 30th, 2017 for the E.W. Pratt commencement ceremony to deliver a message of congratulations to the students of 2017.
All right, you've got the information. All in favor? This motion is carried. Northern Lakes College 2017 convocation. Councillor Rose. The
council approve the attendance of Mayor Cox or delegate to attend the Northern Lakes College 2017 convocation on June 2nd, 2017 in High Prairie.
All right, all in favor? That motion is carried. Now moving on to the verbal reports. Motion, yes. Yes? That's, you're gonna give a speech.
Yeah, I just followed what it said, but should it say to review?
I think it's, well, I know with, your motion was Mayor Cox or delegate.
Well, or she would delegate that to somebody else, that's all. And then whoever that would bring greetings.
Okay, I just wanted some
Yep.
clarification there.
Yeah, it's not just for anybody to
And-
attend, it's just if she can't attend, she can delegate somebody who can attend and they would bring greetings.
Okay.
Planters peanuts. You bring planters peanuts to the event.
Yeah, good luck.
Or mixture.
That says remembers it, right?
Okay, reports, we're moving right along here. This is a very short agenda. The the March 8th to the 21st Mayor's Report is attached, as well as the March 8th to the March 22nd to the April 4th Mayor's Report, also attached. So, if you have any questions, you've had a chance to read it over. I move my report for information. All in favor? Motion is passed. Councillor Tanaka, her written report is here.
My report from March 7th to March.
Sorry, March 7th to March 21st. I apologize. I thought I had sent my March 22nd, April 4th in, but I didn't. So this one will be a quick verbal. We had the annual museum AGM. Basically, the executive remains unchanged. We had one new member join, Helen Henderson. And we discussed, we've got confirmation from ATCO that we will have a tent for the time capsule celebration. The confirmation was received that the Young Canada Works application is being reviewed. The museum received their monies from the casino that was worked in November, amount of $32,654.41. As well, the museum was awarded $1,280, and unfortunately I can't remember which grant, but that was towards the "You Are Here" type sign that they're building outside the museum. The other was that we had a bylaw meeting and we worked our way through 1982. We had another one April 5th, but that will be on my next report, and I move my report for information if there's no questions.
Seeing none, all in favor? Motion, report is accepted. Councillor Gilroy.
I have to apologize that mine's a verbal, but there's, basically, I've been at every meeting that has been asked of, the ones that are all spoken of for the whole council, but there also, I was able to go to the, make a presentation to the rec board about the Sports Central equipment, and I'm awaiting an answer from them as to their direction. Other than that, there's nothing that I was at liberty to report about the foundation meeting, because they didn't have as much information that has not already been reported upon. I'm hoping, because of who was there, I'm hoping to get a better idea of where they're at. However, one thing that's important is that they are in good standing financially. And secondly, they are also looking at increasing their ability to accept donations. And so in other words, they're looking at the charitable status a bit more. They do have a certain amount, but they are trying to re-enhance the federal version of it. They have the Alberta version. Don't ask me what the difference is on that one, but they are working on it right now, and they will have more of an impact for you later on that. And The only other thing we can say is that it has to do with the quilting contest, design contest, and that is I was asked by the Quilt Club, Quilting Guild, to approach the foundation to basically take the quilt that they're going to make and to then dispose of it in such a way that the funds received from it would go to hospital equipment. At the same time, when I let them know that it had been accepted, they also said that they were checking in to see of another option, which was they had already asked the hospital as well if they wanted it to hang up in the hospital. And so I haven't heard yet from them which of the two offers was finally accepted.
Okay. Any questions? Could you move your report for information?
Okay, I move my verbal report for information.
All in favor? It's carried. Councillor Long.
As always, a verbal. I know, I'm sorry. And had a chance to talk with Chad Drummond, and Esso's still excited and on board for getting the Esso lot cleaned up for us. They are working on their last little bit of legal stuff that they need to do. Again, Chad said he didn't have the park plans that we initially had from before. So I took the picture again and I sent it off again to his email, so hopefully it's the right one. But he was in and out of meetings today and tomorrow, so hopefully he'll let me know that he's received it, and then we can move this thing right along so that we can start planning for that park if it comes through as we're hoping with all the parameters that we're looking for. Meeting with Sesquicentennial coming up, if not tomorrow night, then the next night, to discuss our film and poetry contest. And so we'll be meeting tomorrow night, hopefully, but possibly the next night regarding that. And that's about all I have right now at this time.
Okay. Any questions? Councillor Rose?
Awesome that you're making some progress with Esso, but what park are you talking about? I thought we had sort of talked about a grass area, and is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Like, okay.
Yeah, so initially in the discussions right from the start, it was talked, we wanted that site prep before anything, and that Esso would cover that cost of the gravel, the topsoil, and the sod. And then from there we can, and hopefully it's the 10-year lease that we're looking for. I don't see that being a problem. They seem amenable to that. So yeah, that's.
Okay. Councillor Panassa?
Did we ever, as a council, decide what we wanted to do with that? Like, I'm just, like, I never heard, know that we decided on that, because there was some talk of doing other things, and now I'm hearing that this is going ahead, so trying to get that.
Yes.
In the discussions that we had in the past, and when I brought it forward, they won't entertain the remedial work that's needed right now. They've stated time and time again that it's not even on their radar yet. They have dozens and dozens and hundreds to do before they get to ours for reclamation work and environmental work. So we have a choice. We can have it into a community park, and the reason it was discussed at 10 years was because it gives us an opportunity to develop something and then actually take advantage of that and utilize it. If it went as the normal sort of lease, it's a year-by-year lease for $1 with 30-day notice that they're coming in to do reclamation work. So we could put a park there if we wanted, and they could come in the day after we do the ribbon cutting ceremony and say, we're ready to cut it, and do the reclamation work, which would mean we'd have to take it all apart. So at least this gives us a nice window of opportunity, plus it also gives us an opportunity to ownership, when they at the end of the 10 years, when they do come in to do the reclamation work, we would say we have 10 years of having this park in place for the citizens of this community. We don't think you should be selling it.
Councillor Panassa?
Shouldn't that be a council decision?
It is.
We haven't never made that motion
Yeah.
or decided upon that, and that's why I'm going, why we should make a decision on what we want to see there and what it's going to look like.
Correct.
As opposed to just moving ahead on something that we haven't discussed or agreed with. That's my.
We have discussed.
But we haven't agreed.
No. But we can't move forward until they have their paperwork drawn up for us as to how this is going to work. Otherwise, we can just take the old lease agreement for 1 year, 30-day notice, and accept it. But that was discussed and that was said to be unacceptable. So they came in with a 5-year, and I said, how about a 10-year? Put that into your proposal, into your agreement. We'll bring it before council and we'll discuss its merits then. And so that's where it's at. There's no point in us moving forward on it until we know exactly what Essel's willing to do. And so what they're willing to do in the discussions what I had and when I brought back to council before was the 10-year lease plan. Once we get that, we can decide on it. If we don't want it, we can turn it down. It doesn't matter. It's not written in stone. It's getting things moving so that we can have a green space that's worthy of this town and not an eyesore.
Councillor
Something's
Gilroy?
getting done.
Thank you.
I want to thank Councillor Long on what he's been doing there. If I remember from all the meetings we've had in regard to this, including our brainstorming meeting, our priorities, I believe we did give you direction to go there, but await final approval, which you've just said.
Yeah.
And so I believe that's what we've discussed 10 years, but we wanted to see the final document from them before we would commit to anything. And so I like the way you're going with this and look forward to seeing the finalized copy so that all of us at council can look at it and do any changes or whatever we need to do to get it done for the citizens of this town. So we can actually have green space instead of concrete jungle.
Councillor Rose?
Just one more question, and it's about sesquicentennial. Is that a separate meeting regarding just the, okay, good, because I don't have that on my agenda.
Anything else? Councillor Panassa? No? No? Okay. All,
My verbal report for information.
all in favor? That's carried. Councillor Courtley, Councillor Panassa?
Nothing out of all of the meetings that everybody else has been at, except for the bylaw meetings that I've been at, so nothing to report.
When did the bylaws come, or have they already come? That was at one of the meetings. I wasn't at.
I can speak on that a little bit, or Donna can, whichever, but they were going to bring some forth, but Marion is swamped as part of the issue right now. And the other issue is that as we're moving ahead, we're finding that some of the bylaws, as you move from the 1960s up, as you get to the 80s, the 1960 ones was repealed at some point, in the future. And so we're finding those things, and then we're finding if we repeal something that was repealed after, it's like reactivating it. So we're trying to be careful and get through a few more and get all of the lists, so at least we can see the titles, because we're now up to 1978, I believe.
Oh, that's pretty good.
86 or 87. Okay, sorry. And we're trying to get through some more of them, and then we can look back and see. But right now, we don't even have a list of what bylaws have existed from there moving ahead, not even like the title, so we can sort of cross-check them. And that's what we're wanting Marion to do, to get us up to date on that. And she doesn't have the time, so she's waiting on the summer student, that one of the office one, to come in and help with that. So we're waiting to try and get that so we can catch up and get that done. And hopefully we'll just have to do one bylaw to repeal all of the old bylaws.
You guys have done really good, seriously.
We were kind of hoping,
Oh, it's a lot of work. And the other thing that we're trying to do is see if we can find some software. I don't know if she found any, but
Different though, I don't know, remember that?
well, it's software to manage this, because one of the things with all of the bylaws is they get amended, but there's nothing saying that it was amended here or there and when, and yeah, like it's right now it's in a very labor-intensive spreadsheet that's very manual to try to update and do. So I know that was another thing she was going to look for, was some special software for maintaining and updating the database. So lots of little things to work on, and so it's coming.
Well, if they can't find some, I'm sure we could hire contract.
Did Marion sit in with you guys when you were on that webinar, or when you were talking to that girl?
Yeah.
She said it?
Yeah, but it won't work for that.
No? It
Oh.
won't? Okay.
I don't
Because they
think
could do get a programmer and write you a simple program. It can't be that hard of a program to,
We can look.
Every municipality in Alberta has to deal with this.
yeah.
And not just Alberta, we're talking in Canada, it would
So
have
it's
the
gotta be
same
something
issue.
there.
So I would think that there's something out there, right? It's not a unique issue to High Prairie. This is, mind you, I did have Jordan check with the county, and they do it in a spreadsheet. That's the way the county's handling it. So I don't know what others are doing, and he said Lamont was basically a spreadsheet too, so maybe that's what
Well, maybe
lots of people are
Trinus
doing.
wants to write a program.
Start something new.
Oh, absolutely. I would think there'd be some room there.
trademark on it, copyright it.
Yeah. Okay,
I move my report for information.
any questions? Councillor Gilroy?
Just a quick question on time frame. I don't know if you would answer this or not, because you said you didn't mention anything about an airport meeting, but what is the time frame that the government's giving on all that repaving, including the airport and the possible runway? And have you heard anything about any funds generated for it? Because we do have to look at that extra money we've committed to the runway.
We haven't had another runway meeting. We haven't had an intermunicipal meeting. They were canceled, so I've got nothing. I'm not sure if anybody else has heard. I don't know the answer to that.
I think the last I heard was that the contract was supposed to have been dealt with on March 31st, because the tendering price was only good until March 31st. So I don't know how they dealt with, whether they got an extension, or because they haven't really got the approval from the provincial government to,
Have you heard they haven't got it?
well, I haven't heard that they've got it or not got it. All I heard was that,
I know airport's on the intermunicipal agenda. So
yeah, okay. April 21st is the,
21st is the meeting.
21st is the
At noon.
meeting. Okay. So move for information, all in favor? That one's carried. And Councillor Rose.
You guys have a copy of my report. The one thing that I can just add for your information, the very first part of my report, March 15th, I talked about a meeting with the Minister for Economic Development and Trade for the LSLEA. And we had a follow-up conference call today with the Deputy Minister. Deputy Minister?
Assistant, it says.
Assistant Deputy? Is that what she is?
Cynthia Farmer.
Right, okay, that's who we spoke to today, and we provided the information that was requested at that meeting. We updated some of the forms or documents that had been already provided, and we'll await a response, but she said it's likely that the funding will be approved. which is awesome, because it was looking like we weren't gonna get the funding and we would have to close the office.
So that's really good. And that was it then?
Yeah, that was
The
it that I
rest
was
of
gonna mention, yeah.
Yeah, okay. I want to move your report
So
for
I will
information.
move my report for information.
All in favor? The motion is carried, and we will take a 10-minute break.